Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of Meat for the Grinder, our series dedicated to Necromunda Dark Uprising Battle Reports. Meat for the Grinder is a Necromunda campaign set in the final days of Hive Arcos, where Chaos, Xenos, and Order clash for control of a collapsing Hive City. And on today's episode, we are discussing Battle Report number 14. This is a hit-and-run scenario that is fought between my two friends, Screaming the Emo as well as Senior Chang. Screaming the Emo is bringing the red faction of the Genestealer Cult, while my buddy Senior Chang is bringing the Lords of the Pit, his Scavvy gang. Now, because this battle report will be a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below, so that way you can click and navigate to the part of the battle report that interests you the most. So that being said, let's go and talk about rosters for both of these gangs.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenarios for this one is hit and run, and this one my friend Senior Chang will be the defender, while my other friend Screaming the Emo will be the attacker in this scenario. For crews, the attacker gets D3 plus 7 custom selection, while the defender gets D6 plus 7 randomly chosen selection for their crew on that one. So because of that, what ends up happening is that the idea is that the defending gang is deployed within 6 inches in the center of the battlefield, and of course attackers then set up their fighters anywhere on the battlefield so long as they're at least 8 inches away from enemy models as well. Now, if any fighters are of course in line of sight, you do have a thing called a sense of forbidden game mechanic, but because my friend didn't have anybody in anyone's line of sight, we don't really worry about that one too much. We also have a special rule called Butcher and Bolt, which means that an attacker, if they want to, they can make a double action to vanish off the battlefield so long as they're at least 6 inches away from active enemy fighter as well. The battle ends when only one gang has fighters remaining on the battlefield, and the gang who also scores the most victory points is the winner. And of course, if both gangs have the same number of victory points and is part of the Uprising campaign, then the one whose allegiance is currently his ascendancy is the winner for that one. For rewards on this one, the attacker earns D6 times 10 credits to their stash for each enemy fighter they take out of action. Each fighter who takes part in the battle report actually earns 1 point of experience point, and each defender who takes an enemy out of action earns an additional experience point on top of that. For reputation, the victorious gang earns D3 points reputation, and if any gang gang bottles out, they lose 1 point reputation. So with the scenario rules over with, let's talk about battle plans and deployments. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friends are playing on a 4x4 table. My friend Scream with Emo's forces are actually in the periphery of the battlefield, while my friend Senior Chang, his forces are right in the middle of the fuel tankers, right in the middle of the battlefield. Now, as for battle plans on this one, I really can't tell you what the battle plans really are because I did not play in this game. All I did was I took photos of the battle report and observed it, so you have to talk to my friends about that. For the most part, though, as far as I'm concerned, is that Senior Chang's whole goal is to simply survive. Well, of course, for my friend Scream with Emo, his goal is to try to take out as many Scavvies out of action as he possibly can. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about deployment real quick. So right up here on the top of the fuel tank along that walkway, we have 2 fighters. On the right hand side, that is Slag, who's a Scaly, and right next to him is the Acolyte number 2. And down below on the right hand side of the fuel tank is where most of the fighters are starting out. So starting from the top right and working our way down, we have Howler, the Cannibal King, who is the Scavvy boss, followed by Charlie the Choo Choo, which is a Warp Whore. That guy right next to him in the right hand corner, that character is named King Slender, who is a mutant with a shotgun. Next to him is another Scaly named Hiss, who's armed with a harpoon launcher. Next to him on the left hand side is Bloodraiser, which is a mutant who's armed with an axe as well as gunk bombs and massive claws. And finally on the left hand side we have the Master Blaster, which is a champion who's got a hand flamer as well as paired pulverizers. And that pretty much makes the deployment for the Lords of the Pit. So starting for the red faction, on the far left hand corner on the top of that platform on the elevated highway, up at the front there we have Holland the Shipbreaker. He is a hybrid acolyte, he's got a heavy stubber, he's also got a familiar with him named Snarl as well. And right next to him is another character named Vinner Creel, who is a specialist armed with a long lass. On the bottom right hand corner on the top floor of the Quantum building, we have another fire team up here in the front. In the center there, that is another champion named Mordecai Black. He is a hybrid acolyte armed with a grenade launcher. He also has a psychic familiar named Mimic as well. And of course, he's also flanked by 2 guys. I believe their names are Mykarn as well as Nesher Desh. Both those guys are armed with auto guns, auto pistols, as well as blasting charges. And the remainder of the gang is actually right behind that wall there of the fuel tanks. You really couldn't see it from a front angle when I took the photo, so I just kind of went to the right hand side here to take a photo of it, so that way you can see those fighters. So let's talk about the fire teams who are deployed in that location. So, up at the front on the right hand side, that is a Nightmare that stalks. It is a Sump Beast with multiple legs as well as lashing tail. And next on the left hand side is a Pure Strain Genestealer, which has of course been attached to this gang because of the difference in credit value between both gangs. There's such a huge difference for the underdog bonus. We got a Pure Strain Genestealer to kind of balance out the scales. And you can find the rules for this creature in the Book of Peril. And lastly, making the very fast fire team on the right hand side, the Red Robes, as Gyrus and Star, the Cult Adept, who's also the leader of this gang. Also with him is Rar, his psychic familiar. Next to him, of course, a character named Jarek Barkus, which is a hybrid, neophyte hybrid who's armed with auto pistols as well as a chainsword. And then right in front of them are 2 Aberrants. Those characters' names are Isak Black as well as Sabin Black. They're 2 Aberrants who are equipped exactly the same with hazard suits, chainswords, shockwhips, as well as the Unstoppable skill. And that makes up deployment for the Red Faction. So deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both of my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 1. Both my friends roll off for initiative, and the Genestealer Cults managed to get the initiative on this one, so they will be going first in this turn. And for his very first activation, my friend Scream with Emo activates Holland the Shipbreaker, who also has a group activation with Vinner Creel. Now, when ends up happening, that Holland the Shipbreaker takes a basic action to aim his heavy stubber, so that way he gets +1 to hit, to mitigate the -1 to hit penalty for long-range shooting, and another basic action to open fire with his heavy stubber. And the reason why he's able to do that is because he does have the extra arm mutation, and that allows him to do so. Holland the Shipbreaker opens up with his heavy stubber directly on the Oculoid as well as with Slag in the back of him. I believe he got 5 shots off, with that heavy stubber. He puts the first 2 shots directly into the Oculoid, managed to put a serious injury onto him. So because of that, the Oculoid number 2 goes falling face first into the cold hard decking. He is currently bleeding out in a very bad way. The rest of the shots go directly into Slag, which is the Scaly's arm with the heavy stubber. Managed to hit him all 3 times, failed to wound him twice though, did manage to wound him once however, so because that Slag is currently pinned and he's also lost 1 additional wound. So with that, Vinner Creel also takes a basic action aim with his long last to get +1 to hit at long range, and another basic action open fire with it directly into the Master Blaster. Not only does he manage to hit that mutant champion, but also manage to put a wound on him as well, so that guy is now pinned and he has a wound. Unfortunately, the Master Blaster has 3 wounds, so he's got 2 more left, but still, pretty good opening round of shooting, all things considered. So we then go to my friend Senior Chang, who's about to do a group activation with Hiss, which is the Scaly arm with the harpoon launcher, as well as King Slender, but unfortunately though, they get interrupted due to the Overwatch rule. Mordecai Black does have the Overwatch skill, which means that he can't interrupt enemy activations, and he decides to do so, opening fire with a frag grenade from his grenade launcher right down directly to where both Hiss as well as the King Slender are located at. And the shot is good, going right directly between the two of them and also exploding, catching both fighters in that 3-inch blast template, so they get showered with red-hot shrapnel being fired from that frag grenade. Luckily for Senior Chang, though, both those fighters do not take any wounds. In fact, the only thing that ends up happening is they end up being pinned for the most part, which is actually quite lucky. I believe the reason why is because for the armor save on the Scaly on the left-hand side, Hiss was able to survive that because of his excellent armor save. And as for King Slender, I believe he just rolled a wonder way to win that guy, so he is perfectly fine as well. Now, because Hiss as well as King Slender were pinned earlier by the grenade launcher round, they lose their activation. So because of that, goes right back to my friend Screaming Emo, who then does an activation with Mycon, which is the fighter there on the right-hand side. Now, he takes a basic action, aim with his autogun, another basic action, open fire with his autogun directly into Charlie the Choo-Choo. Now, unfortunately for me, I forgot to take the photo of Charlie the Choo-Choo, the Warport, getting hit. He does get hit, and to add on to the injury, he also gets a wound as well. So he's currently pinned with 1 wound. I do apologize for not taking the photo earlier. So, going back to my buddy Senior Chang, he decides to activate Slag, which is his Scaly got pinned earlier, who's armed with a Heavy Stubber. So once Slag gets on his feet again, he opens fire with his Heavy Stubber directly into Holland the Shipbreaker, and the reason why he's able to do so is because he has a suspensor for that Heavy Stubber, so he's able to fire that weapon as a basic action. Unfortunately for him, though, he does suffer -2 to hit penalty against Holland the Shipbreaker because he's pretty much in full cover. But when he rolls to hit, he rolls a perfect 6, and on the rapid fire dice, he actually managed to roll 1, so because 2 shots, so because that both those go directly into Holland the Shipbreaker. However, what was not fantastic, though, was that it was saved by the Familiar. So because that little snarl there managed to pass a willpower test, so those shots go nowhere. And those, let me tell you, those Psychic Familiars, man, they are worth their weight in gold. They've been really paying off dividends in this battle report. Scream of the Emo then activates Nasser Desh, who takes a basic action aim with his autogun, and another basic action open fire directly into Slag, who's across the straightaway from him. And he managed to hit Slag. Unfortunately, he was unable to wound him, however, but Slag is currently pinned, which is actually pretty good, all things considered. So going back to Senior Chang, realizing he's getting shot to pieces while staying around, he decides to move out. He does a group activation with both Howler the Cannibal King as well as Blood Razor down below. And the two of them decide to move out of the engagement area so that way they don't keep on getting shot at from all sides. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you see there in the middle of the picture there, you can see Charlie the Choo-Choo, who's pinned and also has a wound on him. The reason why is because earlier in the battle report, Mycon actually shot this character and also put a wound on him as well. I forgot to take a photo of it, but this is what the aftermath pretty much looked like. Senior Chang then takes both Hal the Cannibal King as well as Blood Razor to have them do double movements directly to the bottom right-hand corner of the battlefield, so that way they can work their way through the Quantum Building and try to work their way up and engage the Genestealer Cultists from the very top level. Going back to Scream of the Emo, he then decides to activate the Nightmare that stalks, which is the Sump Beast that he has in his gang. The Nightmare that stalks declare a charge directly against Slag, so because that it does move directly above the fuel tanks directly into him, engages him in close combat. He opens up with his ferocious jaws as well as his lashing tail, getting a rending attack on the 6 on that one, making it 1 additional damage on top of that. Managed to put Slag directly out of action with the alkaloid result as well. Now, if you notice, the alkaloid is missing. The reason why the alkaloid is missing in this photo, so that way we can put those dice down, so that way you, the viewer, can see them. And we're going to put the alkaloid right back when we're done. And you can see that's also a very precarious spot for the alkaloid number 2, because all that needs to happen the next turn is for this guy to actually charge him, and he can finish him off in a coup de grace, so they're in a really bad way on the top of these fuel tanks. And unfortunately for us, we do make a rules mistake here. I do apologize for that. However, though, we're all just playing a friendly game anyways. We're not professional players or professional YouTubers for that matter, so we do apologize for that. But anyways, my buddy decides to activate Hiss, the Scaly's armed with a harpoon launcher. So because that does a basic action, get back on his feet again, and another basic action, open fire with this harpoon launcher directly into the Nightmare that stalks. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, Commander Cheapskate, isn't a harpoon launcher a heavy weapon? It is, but it doesn't have the mobility trait attached to it. So because it does only count as a basic action. So you open fires with the harpoon launcher directly into the Nightmare that stalks. Not only does he manage to hit the Nightmare that stalks, he also puts a wound on him as well, and he also pulls back on the strength of the harpoon launcher, dragging him 3 inches off the walkway. Now this is where the hilarious part ends up happening. The Nightmare that stalks does fall to the ground, but lands right on top of Charlie the Choo-Choo, the Warp Whore. Both those characters take an additional wound from that impact, so because that both of them are now carrying 2 wounds, and only a third of the way there before they're going out of action. So that part was kind of crazy, all things considered. For Scream of the Enemo's X activation, he decides to activate the Pure Change Genestealer, who decides to do a charge action against alkaloid number 2. And it has no problem whatsoever sticking the landing on Octo number 2 and putting him out with a coup de grace, giving him multiple injuries result on that part. So because he will take D3 lasting injuries. So my friend Screw with the Emo rolls the double set of injuries to figure how many injuries that the Acolyte number 2 will take. He rolls 2 wounds on that one, and when he rolled from, he rolled humiliating injury twice, which means that this poor character loses 2 points from his cool as well as from his leadership characteristics. So that part was horrific. So looking for a little payback, my friend Senior Chang decides to activate Charlie the Choo-Choo, who does a basic action, get back on his feet again, and does another basic action, open fire with his Warp Fire Breath directly into the Nightmare that stalks. So a huge sheet of Eldritch Fire rains over the giant mutated creature. Unfortunate for Senior Chang, though, he doesn't put a wound directly onto the Nightmare that stalks, and he also fails his Blaze roll too, so because of the Nightmare that stalks is completely fine. Looking back now, my buddy Senior Chang wished that he actually just fought instead, because he probably would have done more damage with his 2 horrific appendages. Moving on to my friend Scream of the Emo, he does a group activation with his leader Garrison Starn, as well as Isak, as well as Simon Black, the 2 identical twin Aberrant brothers. All 3 fighters, including the Rar, the second familiar, do double movements directly down the left-hand side of the battlefield, trying to make their way around the fuel tanks in order to engage fighters in close combat. From there, my friend Senior Chang decides to activate Master Blaster. Master Blaster takes a basic action to get back on his feet again to escape pinning, and another simple action move directly towards those 3 fighters over the left-hand side. And the reason why he's doing that is because he is pecking a hand flamer, so it is a template weapon. However, though, it is a bit of a gamble because if, depending who goes first in the next turn, could be advantageous for the Scavvies, or it could be disastrous, kind of depending on how the dice rolls go. So for my friend Scream with Emo, his very last activations on Jarek Balkus, which is his neophyte who's armed with an auto pistol as well as a chainsword. And that fighter also does double movements going forward in order to catch up with the rest of his fire team. Now, originally, my buddy Scream with Emo wanted to move him up just normally and then open fire with his auto pistol, but he found he was out of range if he did that. So because it does move him up to give him a closer, a bit of a gamble depending on how the next turn goes, but it's a gamble that both my friends decided to take. And finally, for Senior Chang's very last activation, he activates King Slender. Once again, we made a rules mistake on this one because he got pinned earlier with the Overwatch, so he should have lost his ready marker, but like I said before, we made that rules mistake again before, so no harm, no foul. So he takes a basic action, get back on his feet again, and another basic action, open fire with his shotgun, opening fire with a solid slug directly into the Nightmare that stalks. Not only does he manage to put the last wound directly onto the Nightmare that stalks as well, when he rolls for the injury dice, however, he rolls a serious injuries instead. So because of that, the Nightmare that stalks does roll over face down. It is currently bleeding in a very precarious situation because any one of these fighters can charge directly into the Nightmare that stalks and take that fighter out of action. And with that, that takes us directly to the end phase of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, things are going very poorly for my friend Senior Chang as well as for the Lords of the Pit. They have a lot of guys who've been taking a lot of wounds, getting pinned, and getting taken out of action as well. They have crossfires coming at it from 2 different directions from the from the bottom half of the table. They have close combatants coming in from the back, swarming him and engaging them in close combat. And at the same time, he's just trying to break contact and trying to escape as quickly as he can. And to make matters worse for my friend Senior Chang, Howler the Cannibal King does fail a bottle test. So because of that, this gang will need to start taking cool tests at the beginning of turn number 2 to see if these fighters actually stick around or if they flee off the battlefield. And in the recovery phase, my friend Scream of the Emo does catch a break with the Nightmare that stalks. Managed to roll a flush on that guy, so because he does roll over, he's perfectly fine. He loses a point of toughness. Now, he is 1 toughness less, but he can still fight. He can still move around, still very much a threat. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both of my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them has priority, and my buddy Scream of the Emo manages to secure priority once again, so they will be going first in turn number 2. And for his very first activation, Scream of the Emo does a group activation with Garrison Starn, who also triggers both Aberrants Isaac Black as well as Sabin Black. So Isak Black goes first, declaring a charge directly against Master Blaster and manages to stick the landing, going directly into the Mutant Champion, engaging him in close combat. And in the end was able to put 3 wounds directly onto Master Blaster as well. The reason why that was the case because he rolled a 6 on the chainsaw with the rending weapon trait kicking in, causing twice as much damage. So because it goes out immediately out of action when he rolls up on that one, getting an out cold result on that too. So just like that, the champion is now DOA. And with the rest of the activation, we have Sabin Black doing a double movement directly past Isaac Black, directly to the right-hand side and the flank of the Lords of the Pit, followed closely by Garrison Starn as well as War, his second familiar. So with that, we go to my friend Senior Chang's very first activation. He takes a cool test with Howler, the Cannibal King, also managed to pass that cool test because everybody within range of him also automatically passed their cool test too. And they do a group activation, activating both Howler, the Cannibal King, as well as Bloodraiser. Both of those fighters do double movements directly to the first floor window of the Quantum building, and they make their way up the staircase, slowly making their way to the rooftop, or the top floor rather, where the rest of the fire team is located at. And by the way, this is a really beautiful looking shot. Not to brag about my photography skills, but I'm actually bragging about the terrain making skills of Iron Major. As you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic and so thematic. We're really lucky to have that guy making terrain for us. So going back to Scream of the Emu, does another group activation, this time with Holland the Shipbreaker, who also group activates with Venegriel as well. Holland the Shipbreaker takes a basic action aim with his heavy stubber and another basic action to open fire with that weapon. Alright, so first of all, a lot of damage is done by Holland the Shipbreaker. The first thing he does, he actually rolls 4 shots with his heavy stubber. He puts 2 of them directly into Charlie the Choo-Choo, managed to eat up the last 2 wounds on Charlie the Choo-Choo as well. And when he rolled for the injury dice on that one, rolled an out-of-action result. Now, because Charlie the Choo-Choo is a warp horror, he is perfectly fine using his Warp Denizen special rule, so he ignores all lasting injuries, so he makes a full recovery no problem. However, King Slender does get hit twice with the heavy stubber. Roll for the injury dice was seriously injured, so because he goes crashing face first into the cold hard decking, and he is currently bleeding out. Now, as for Hiss, the scaly arm with the harpoon launcher, he does pass his cool test. However, though, Venegriel then fires next, taking a basic action aim with his long last, getting +1 to hit, and another basic action open fire directly into Hiss. He manages to hit him, cut through his armor, and also puts a wound directly onto him. So Hiss takes a wound and also goes pinned onto the ground, being hit with that long last. So Senior Chain then activates Hiss, who gets a basic action to get back on his feet again, and he's going to take another basic action to get out of there. And just like Howler, the Cannibal King, he does a simple movement directly to the right-hand side to the base of that building, the Quantum building, so that way he's in the dead space from the shooters in the top floor, so they can't shoot at him, at the same time giving him some space between him and the Aberrants that are trying to engage him in close combat. Scream of the Emo then activates the Sump Beast, the Nightmare that stalks, does a basic action to get back on his feet again, and another basic action to open attack with his Lashing Tail directly into the fighter who's laying down with King Slender, because that thing's got a 4-inch versal trait. Not only does he manage to hit King Slender twice, he wounds him both times as well, and when they roll up for the injury dice, he rolled an out-of-action result, rolling Convalescence. So because that, King Slender does go out of action. He will make a full recovery, he just can't take any post-action sequences. And just like that, my buddy Senior Chain decides to call the game, doesn't lose any more fighters than he currently has, so because of that, the Genestealer Cult of the Red Faction pulls a victory on this one. A really long, really difficult fight for my buddy Scream of the Emo, who's just been really getting it handed to him during the campaign so far, so it's a nice little change of victory for him. And at the same time, did a beautiful job of surrounding and destroying the Lords of the Pit as well. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the after action report to the post game, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so up first is the post-game for Senior Chang's gang, the Lords of the Pit, which is a Scavvy gang. We're going to talk about injuries, advancements, territories, the trading post actions, reputation, as well as new records and new gang ratings. Unfortunately for the Lords of the Pit, though, they did suffer a lot of injuries. A Slag, a Master Blaster, and Charlie the Choo-Choo all made out cold results, so they made full recoveries, so no harm, no foul there. King Slender went into convalescence and made a full recovery as well. And Oculoid number 2 suffered the worst of it, suffering 2 humiliating injuries, losing 2 points to his leadership as well as to his cool. But he does make a full recovery as he went to convalescence. He just can't take any post-battle actions during that time. For advancements, Howler the Cannibal King actually leveled up because he gets D3 experience points for being unaligned, and because it leveled up to level 2 on this one, and he actually chose the Commanding Presence skill to his gang, so now he has larger group activations, and at the same time also increased his credit value by 20 credits. And Socket also leveled up as well because of the Slave Pit that they actually have for their territory, so because of that, he also leveled up to level 1 as well, and when he rolled on the advancement table, he rolled +1 to his toughness, so because he increased his credits by 30 credits, and he's now toughness 4, so that guy's going to be even harder to kill. For their settlements, unfortunately for Senior Chang, he did not manage to recruit anybody from his settlement, but he did manage to drum up 40 credits from that. He also managed to raise 40 credits from the Reclamation Zone territory, as well as 10 credits from his Wasteland territory as well. Now, the biggest earner for him was the Slave Pit territory, which he got 3 additional credit experience points for Howler the Cannibal King, as well as for Sockhead and Charlie the Choo-Choo. All 3 of those guys gained +3 of their experience points, and at the same time, also 10 credits as well. And then from their Havelock territory, unfortunately, they lost it to the Red Faction because of the number of losses they took against that gang. For the trading posts, the Lords of the Pit were able to drop 100 credits from their territories, but my buddy Senior Chang at the time didn't know what he wanted to spend it on, so because of that, he decided he wanted to think about it until the next battle, so he decided to stow those directly in his stash, which is nothing wrong with that. So from his reputation, he earns 1 point of reputation for the campaign week, as well as an additional point of reputation from being unaligned and being a benefit of that. He does lose 1 point of reputation for bottling out. In the end, he was able to increase his reputation to 17 reputation in total. His new record now is at 1 win and 3 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 3,275 points. So now let's talk about the winners of this battle report, which is the Dream of the Emos gang, the Red Faction of the Genestealer Cult. Once again, we'll be talking about injuries, advancements, territories, trading posts, reputation, their new record, as well as their new rating. They actually didn't suffer any injuries in this battle report, but they did have a couple advancements. Isak Black, which is the Abra on the left-hand side there, got rolled up for his upgrade, and actually got +1 to his toughness. So now he has toughness 5, and also increased his credit rating by 30 credits in value as well. Venegriel, the gang specialist, also spent experience points to increase his Bliss skill to Bliss skill 3 now, and also increase his value by 20 credits. So because of that, now Venegriel is even deadlier with that long last. And the Nightmare That Stalks also loaded up the little one as well. Decided to roll on the Cunning skill tree to see exactly which skill we got, and it got the Infiltrate skill. So because of this thing now can deploy anywhere in the battlefield, which makes the thing even more terrifying, and at the same time increase its credit value by 20 credits as well. From their territories, from the settlement territory, Scavvy Emo was able to recruit 2 new Neophyte hybrids, and the reason why he's able to get 2 of those is because of the Fleeting Utopia campaign mechanic, which is going on during this week, which means that all territories double their benefits. In this case, he got 2 Neophyte hybrids. Their names are Kier Sykes as well as Grey Matter. Both those fighters are equipped with hazard suits, auto pistols, as well as fighting knives. He also managed to drum up 50 credits from that territory. From his Underhive Shrine territory, he's also able to increase the armor save for Gyron Starn as well as Cold Novik by 1 point. So by next week, when they go to the next battle report, they'll have a much improved armor save, and at the same time also managed to drum up 30 credits from that territory. Now with their newly captured Hab level that they managed to capture from the Lords of the Pit, they already increased their reputation by 6 points, as managed to drum up 50 credits from that territory. And from their Slave Pits territory, Venegriel learned 3 additional experience points, and Jarek Balkus also learned 1 additional experience point as well, and they also managed to drum up 60 credits from that territory. During their trading post action sequence, they were able to drum up 280 credits from the scenario because of the number of the fighters they took out of action, as well as 190 credits from their territories. And when combined with the 55 credits they had in their stash, gave them a grand total of 525 credits to spend in total. They spent all of it, 520 credits of it, leaving 5 credits behind, which they pushed directly into their stash. So with their credits, they recruited a new hybrid acolyte named the Killer Morph, who's got 0 experience points but costs 220 credits as well. He's got a hazard suit, 3 last pistols with hot shot last packs attached to them, as well as the infiltrate skill, and he's also got an extra arm as well. And the reason why they're able to add additional champions to their gang is because we are using the Amaranthi Succession rules for this campaign, which means you can double the number of champions in your gang. And he also recruited a second champion named Joel Kier. He's a hybrid acolyte, costs 200 credits as well. He's got a hazard suit as well as a mining laser weapon. He's also got a last pistol for a backup weapon, photo goggles to see in all visibility conditions. He's also got the infiltrate skill as well as an extra arm upgrade, so that way you can fire the mining laser as a basic action. So once again, 2 very deadly champions recruited to this gang. And here's a photo of Kier Sykes, one of the Neophyte hybrids they managed to recruit from his settlement. As you can see, he's got a hazard suit, auto pistol, as well as a fighting knife. And here's a photo of Grey Matter, the other second Neophyte hybrid he managed to recruit from his settlement, who's also got a hazard suit, auto pistol, as well as a fighting knife. For reputation, he earns 1 point reputation for the campaign week, as well as 2 points reputation from the territory, as well as 6 reputation from their territories, in the end giving a grand total of 12 reputation in total. His new record now is at 1 win and 2 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 2,920 points. So there you guys have it. That is battle report number 14 of our Duck Uprising campaign now in the books. With that being said, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's great for this week, guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.